This summer, the world's greatest athletes are competing on the global stage in front of an audience of billions. They've been training their whole lives for this moment, and now you get the chance to hear their stories up close and personal. This is Nike On Air, a series about elite athletes brought to you by Nike. You'll hear from the world's fastest woman, Tatiana McFadden, the breakout breaking star, Sunny Choi, basketball legend Dawn Staley, and more. Listen to Nike On Air starting July 7th, only on the Womanica podcast feed.
It's like the music turns on and then it's almost like everything ceases to exist. I don't see the crowd. I don't even see my friends. It's just me. There's music and then there's floor. I don't know how to describe it other than it's just so calm and peaceful. The music is flowing through, but even with the music flowing through, it like flows through like your whole body. It's still calm because it's like all the chatter of the world is gone and I get to just go out there and be me. I just get to have this moment that I don't get to have in regular life.
This month on Womanica, we're doing something special. We're featuring a series of episodes about elite athletes brought to you by Nike. This is Nike On Air, stories of athletes who've pushed the limits of what sport can be. I'm your host, Jenny Kaplan. This episode, Sunny Choi, the newcomer.
My name is Sunny Choi, and I am a breaker.
As of January 2023, Sunny Choi was working to check the boxes she felt made for a successful life. Corporate job, eventually marriage, children, etc. A year and a half later, she's given much of that up, or at least delayed it, in favor of following a different kind of dream. She will be competing as a breaker on the most prominent stage in sports. But Sunny's dream started much earlier in life. She was picturing a medal by the time she was 3 years old.
I told my mom that I wanted to win gold in gymnastics and supposedly pestered her for an entire month before she gave in and found a local class for me to go to. So we show up on day one with a Little Mermaid pink tutu. And I ask her on the way, am I going to win gold? Or am I going to get a medal today?
As her talent became clear, Sunny embraced the rigid world of gymnastics. She trained relentlessly, traveled for meets, and attended special training camps for those on track to compete at the highest level. But continuing down that path required many sacrifices. One was leaving regular school to be homeschooled, allowing for a more flexible schedule with more time to train. Sunny and her parents decided against that. They agreed the best thing for Sunny to do was to live a normal life and do gymnastics as an extracurricular.
When I decided that, I think it was young Sunny trying to be mature Sunny and trying to make the, quote unquote, responsible decision. It was like a decision that I thought was going to lead me to, career stability, financial stability, put me on that pathway to be, again, like, quote unquote, successful. And it was tough knowing that I was giving up on a dream that I really wanted, but I think I put society's expectations of what success looks like over my own desires at that point.
She continued gymnastics through middle school and high school, and she signed with the University of Pennsylvania's gymnastics team. And then Sunny's body hit a breaking point.
In high school, I had a couple knee injuries, had surgery, re-injured something. Doctors couldn't figure out what was going on, and I ended up quitting gymnastics because of that.
Without gymnastics providing structure and direction, Sunny felt lost.
And I didn't know what to do. And I was starting to gain that freshman 15, which, I'd spent my entire life being super, super athletic and fit. And I was just like kind of reeling. And I literally stumbled onto some breakers who were dancing outside on campus at night. And they invited me to a class. So I went and tried it. And after the class, I stayed a little bit. They asked me to try these things on my hands and go upside down and spin on this hand. And then I was like, all right, this is fun. And I'm back upside down. So I think this is much better than the treadmill. I'm going to keep going. And that's how I got into breaking.
While Sunny got into it on a college campus in 2008, breaking has a long-standing history.
There was a dance that precedes the one that we see today, which people refer to it as like a couple different names. Some refer to it as burning, some refer to it as rocking, some refer to it as up rock. And these are kind of like the three names that you would kind of like hear. And those dances kind of like gets its start, I want to say around the late 60s, around that time.
That's Jamal Nemesis Warren.
I am a b-boy, gymnast, stuntman performer.
Nemesis, as he's most commonly known in the breaking world, is somewhat of a breaking historian. Breaking originated in the early 1970s in the Bronx, New York. It got its name from the father of hip-hop, DJ Kool Herc.
He was playing what we call breaks. At first, in those days, they played the whole record. And when the break would come on, you would see everybody just go off because that was the dancing part where you could kind of like do your thing, by yourself. And from that point, they wanted the break to kind of like last longer, because if the break is longer, you dance longer.
The break was the isolated instrumental part of the song that emphasized the drum beat.
And then Herc, by his words, he created a technique called the merry-go-round, where pretty much you play two records, where one is going and when that other break stops, you switch over to the other record and it keeps going to that same break, And that kind of like prolonged the break. And in doing so, it prolonged the dance to stay down on the ground even more.
At that point, breaking only existed in uptown New York.
By the mid-'80s, it was just everywhere, because there was like this little gallery or gathering of everybody where you had like, from what I understand, a lot of prominent folk like Basquiat, Andy Warhol, all these people who were at this thing and they saw this dance for the first time and they were like, oh shit, like what is this, this sort of thing going on? And it got written up in the Village Voice. And then all of a sudden, by 1990, this guy named Thomas from Germany put together this event called Battle of the Year. And basically his purpose was to kind of like pull people together that was still around breaking and see if he could get them into this one place. And year after year, it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger.
Breaking expanded in the early 90s, and thankfully for Sunny, made its way to Penn. Breaking gave Sunny the chance to be flipping upside down in the air again, but without the rigid constraints of gymnastics. That was an adjustment.
What was so different about breaking was that the technique was a little bit more loosey-goosey. So they were like, kick up like this, and then you're going to spin on one hand. And I was like, that sounds wild. Because in gymnastics, you're always kind of moving on like an axis, or it just feels like everything feels so structured. And, I'm watching them and all of them do this move all different. And I was like, I don't know if I can do this. When I first started dancing, I actually used to choreograph myself a little bit more because I was too nervous to just like let go of control. I am 100% a control freak. And so that was really, really difficult for me.
Over time, Sunny learned to let go.
Over the years, that amount that was kind of choreographed has just gotten less and less and less. That kind of freedom was really, really nice. And I think that's probably what drew me in, was that there wasn't that same rigid structure that I'd always been in as a gymnast, and even not just as a gymnast, but in school, and even the boxes I put myself in life in terms of like what I needed to be and how I needed to get there, right, to be successful. All of that kind of was broken down, right? And I could do what I want, how I wanted.
In those moments while dancing, Sunny could just be. The feeling was liberating, but it only lasted so long as she was breaking. Most of her time was less being and more doing, scrambling to cross off a never-ending to-do list. Sunny graduated from college and entered the corporate world.
So I kept the job because I wanted to be able to dance and I couldn't make a living off of dance. So the job was, yes, one, it was to be outwardly seen as successful and to set myself up to hopefully, have a house, have a family, be financially stable. But the other piece of it was I was working to be able to pay for me to break on the side because I needed to do something else because I wasn't happy in my corporate jobs.
She worked her way up the corporate ladder and eventually became Estee Lauder's global operations director. Still, Sunny continued breaking, participating in competitions around the world. She told every boss she had that she would always get her work done, but that work might need to happen in different time zones on occasion.
I did this one trip where over the weekend I went to Japan and I was only in Japan for like 36 hours. And I remember on the way there, during a layover, something was happening at work. And so I was like getting Wi-Fi so that I can like fix that problem before I continued on to my next city. And then I showed up at work on like Tuesday or something. And everyone was like, wait, what's happening? How did this happen?
Trying to do it all wasn't sustainable.
It was exhausting. There's not balance when you just go 24/7. The concept of rest and not having to deserve rest is actually very new to me. And conceptually, I always knew it existed and I knew that that's how it should be. But like deep down, I believe that I had to work for rest. And so there was no balance. It was constant work. And then rest only when I could no longer work anymore, when I truly kind of hit my limit.
When breaking was announced as a sport in this year's games, Sunny had a decision to make. Reignite 3-year-old Sunny's dreams or uphold society's expectations.
Initially, my hesitations were all around, well, I don't want to give up my job because it's like I get paid well and I'm comfortable and I'm stable. What if I want to have a kid? I'm not particularly young anymore. So like, am I okay with putting that off for a few years? That means I can't buy a house most likely because I'm going to have to quit my job. And that puts back all of my life plans, all those check boxes that I had been basically preparing my entire life for. I was about to say, no, I'm not going to check any of those boxes anytime soon. And I kind of was like, well, but who says I need to do those soon anyway? Like, what is it really that's holding me back? I don't remember what started this thought process, but I was like, it's fear of failure. And so, looking at my entire life and realizing that my entire life had been guided by this fear of failure. One, I was devastated because I was like, I robbed myself of so many experiences that I could have had. Had I trusted myself, had I allowed myself to dream, had I allowed myself to do something a little bit different than what society expected me to do. And so I remember just crying my eyes out and being like, I can't do this again to myself. I can't do it. I have to let myself try.
So that's what Sunny's doing, letting herself try. And she's having fun while doing it. She lights up when she describes the sport, a physical feat that many may not be totally familiar with.
It's a combination of dance, gymnastics, and then a little bit of fighting in the sense that like we're head to head and we're battling. So while we shouldn't be physically touching each other, sometimes it does happen, but there is that element of like face-to-face competition.
And it's all improvised. The DJ picks music and competitors just go for it.
There are times when I walk into a battle, but I have absolutely no game plan. I just walk in with like a blank mind and I'm like, I'm here. Let's see what happens in the moment. And like, while I'm watching the competitor or while I'm kind of standing there and I hear the song, maybe something comes to mind. Maybe I walk out, and something else comes to mind. Maybe not, and I just end up moving.
Since the rise of the internet, breaking has blown up.
I mean, when I first started breaking, it wasn't even called a sport. And I don't think anybody would have thought to call it a sport. I think a lot of people just saw it as a dance. But the elements are all there for it to be sport.
Competitions are held around the world, bringing together an international community of dancers determined to show off their creative prowess in dance and personal style. Streetwear has long been part of breaking culture.
Breaking fashion, I think, has kind of always been dictated by street fashion. So back in the day, a lot of people wore tracksuits when they were breaking. The clothing needs to be functional because what we're doing is very physical, and there's a lot of contact with the clothing and the floor. So like if I were to wear a shirt that has a big graphic on the back, I'm going to get stuck on my back. And in the middle of a battle, that doesn't look good.
For many breakers, fashion is another form of expression.
If you walk into a jam, you're still going to see someone probably in a tracksuit, top and bottom, with matching shoes, and maybe a hat. But then you're also going to see people wearing like really, like even like luxury brands sometimes. Like I'm seeing a little bit of that now, and like really oversized pants and stuff like that, and everything in between.
Increasing popularity and brand interest in the sport are bringing new innovations and opportunities.
One of the things about breaking is it's been like a subculture for so long that not many brands have ever really paid attention and made gear specifically for breaking. And so I think that's what's really cool about what Nike is doing right now is making a shoe specifically for breakers. And it's also really cool that I got to be part of that process.
Earlier this year, Sunny went to Nike headquarters to help design and test a shoe specifically made for breakers.
We practiced with like the very first version of the shoe, and they had like tape and alternate insoles and all these different things so that we could change up the shoe on the spot. So like I'd be dancing and I'd be like, I keep getting stuck on the side of the shoe. She'd be like, hang on, I have this tape. Let's try and tape it here and tell me like how far down I need to go with the tape so that it actually like works for you.
Shoes are one of the most important elements of breaking fashion. They're the things that touch the floor the most.
Things like the logo being upside down on the shoe or potentially on apparel means when breakers are going upside down, because there's not a ton of sports where you go upside down. When breakers go upside down, that logo reads correctly. So something like that is custom and special and made for us. Watching break go from just street culture to even having their own breaking shoe and like a custom line for breakers is actually really cool because it also signals like brands are paying attention, and it lends like it's credible. It can be seen as something that's like respectable to do because now we have like whole clothing lines based on it. So I think that that's really cool.
Being featured at what is considered the pinnacle of sports exposes breaking to a whole new audience. It gives people insight into the culture and community. For Sunny, those are things she believes should be shared with the world.
I would like to pass on the lessons that I've learned from breaking to the next generation. There's so many things that are just really incredible about break culture and my experience in breaking that I think kids can really benefit from a lot. I think there are lessons that can be learned in breaking that aren't often taught in schools that are really great, I think, to like supplement kind of like a kid's development, right? So for example, it's like the way that we express ourselves physically. It's not just that it's exercise, which is also great for kids, right? But it's about self-expression, about moving in a way that's authentic to you and figuring out who you are.
Sunny wishes she'd learned those lessons of freedom, self-expression, and authenticity as a kid. Now, as an adult, she'd like to create a space for the next generation.
And then breaking also has that community aspect, which is really beautiful. And I think for kids to be part of a community from a young age that isn't just their necessarily like their school or their class, you know, of peers, but with breaking, most breakers, you know, you don't have to pay anything. And I would love to have a center where I can potentially like help offset the costs of classes so that it is more accessible to everybody, because I really want a very, very diverse community, because I feel like one of the best things about breaking is that it's a really, really diverse community. So you're around people that you wouldn't always be around normally. And it's about finding community within that space and kind of learning about that.
Tune in next weekend to hear from women's basketball greats Dawn Staley and A'ja Wilson. The pair's journey together began back in 2013, but more than a decade later, they're still cheering each other on. This summer, the world's greatest athletes are competing on the global stage in front of an audience of billions. They've been training their whole lives for this moment, and now you get the chance to hear their stories up close and personal. This is Nike On Air, a series about elite athletes brought to you by Nike. You'll hear from the world's fastest woman, Tatiana McFadden, the breakout breaking star, Sunny Choi, basketball legend Dawn Staley, and more. Listen to Nike On Air starting July 7th, only on the Womanica podcast feed.
This summer, click into easier yard cleanup with same-day delivery from the Home Depot. Click into clearing overgrown grass or weeds with effortless gas-like power. And click into the convenience of a battery platform compatible with over 250 tools with the Milwaukee M18 fuel trimmer, now for just $199. Click into power with 4th of July savings now at the Home Depot. How doers get more done. Order select and stock items by 4 p.m., subject to availability.
Want to teach your kids financial literacy, but not sure where to start? Greenlight can help. With Greenlight, parents can keep an eye on kids' spending and saving, while kids and teens use a card of their own to build money confidence. As a parent, you can send instant money transfers, set up chores, automate allowance, and more. It's a convenient way to run your household, customized to your family's needs, and the easy way to raise financially smart kids. Get started with Greenlight today and get your first month free at greenlight.com/iHeart.
This sun season, evolve your sun care with new Banana Boat 360 coverage. With advanced control mist, it's a new way to spray. An all-new bottle means an all-new mist experience that smells great and is incredibly light on your skin. Better control with coverage you can count on. Tap the trigger lightly to cover targeted areas or pull for a long, continuous spray, ensuring long-lasting Banana Boat protection. Plus, it's refillable. From sweat-resistant sport formula to kids SPF 50+. Shop Banana Boat 360 Mist at Walmart, Target, or Amazon.